Welcome, everyone. This is going to be our design thinking webinar, specifically for innovation and how it's applied to create better products and services. It's a customer-centric methodology. Some of you might know about it, some of you might not. Either way, we will go over and introduce it. So even if you don't know about it, you'll find out soon. But it's going to be an in-depth view of how this methodology is changing the world in more ways than one, and in ways that we might not be aware, but it's touching our lives from all areas of our existence, especially from the perspective of consumer goods and services. So I'm really excited for all of you to find out, if you don't already know, how and all the different examples we will include in the presentation. So yeah, I'm gonna get straight into it. First of all, I want to introduce myself and my colleague, Lela. I am a certified design thinking trainer and facilitator, and I'm also part of a wonderful team at Solveo. We work with innovation and consulting in that area. And Lela, if you can introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lela. I'm part of the design thinking team in Solveo. I'm one design thinking project because I started as a German teacher and ended as a HR manager in our company. So everything is possible. I like doing different things and also be part of this innovation family, Solveo.
Thank you, Lela. Me and Lela will go back and forth throughout the presentation, so you will hear more from both of us. And at the end, when we have the Q&A sessions, both of us will answer your questions, so stay tuned for that. First, before we get started, I just want to cover what we will go over today. So the first thing that we will go over is what is design thinking, a little bit more in depth, how it works and why it works the way it works. We will also share some global success stories which were powered through design thinking. We believe that the best way to learn is through examples, so we will make sure to include some really interesting examples that you might or might not know of. We will also go over the 5 different approaches for using design thinking to accelerate innovation. This will be something that you can include yourself in and share how you've used it in the past or how you're hoping to use it in the future. So we will get very practical in that area. We will also share examples and lessons from our experience. And finally, we will share how you can organize your own design thinking innovation workshop within your organization or for another organization as a facilitator. Lastly, because most of you here are managers, we want to share some tips and rather ways in which, if you get really good at this methodology, it's actually going to make you a better leader and manager for your team in your day-to-day activities as well. Because this methodology is actually also, let's say, a way of thinking. So it can really help you transform your approach with your team. And we're really excited to share all of this with you. So really quickly, who are we? Both me and Lela come from Solveo. Solveo is an innovation consultancy that our mission is to help businesses create and launch better products and services in the world. And out of that mission, a few different services that we provide kind of have come out of. One of them is design thinking events. We will share some examples later on of what we've done. Another one is product launch. We've actually worked with a lot of companies, both startups and already established companies, which want to launch new products. And we also do innovation consulting because sometimes our clients don't always need a workshop or a strategy, but they just need help figuring things out so they can do things on their own. Our clients come from very different fields. We have clients from the public sector, from the NGO sector. We have clients from the private sector, both big and small. We have clients from the local area, from Macedonia. We're from Macedonia. We should have probably mentioned that in the beginning. But also from the region, as well as from the US, from Europe. So we've been privileged to have experience from all over the world, and it's definitely enriched our understanding of what is possible and what you can do even from the Balkans. So our projects, some of you might know us through Design Thinking Maka. That is our blog. Actually, Lela is the one that initiated it and that is often a contributor there. So you can check it out if you're from Macedonia. And for our global viewers, we also have really exciting big community of growth marketing professionals, but also founders that I believe currently has over 8,000 members. And this community, it's on Slack, is a place where people can share their experiences, ask for advice, and essentially help each other create and launch better products. So it's right in line with our mission. Okay, so what is design thinking? I believe you already saw that there was a little pop-up on your screen with a poll. I am curious how many of you answered what. When we have the results, it will pop up on your screens as well as on mine, and I will share what we know about the audience at this point. We just wanted to get you in the mood to share, and this is a way of automating that experience, but I hope you don't mind because it's something new that we're actually trying out, we're testing. So yeah, it won't be too many questions. I hope it's not distracting, but yeah, please include your answers so we know more about our audience, so that later when we get to the Q&A, we know how to structure our answers. Okay, so what is design thinking? The big question of the day. First of all, design thinking, as you might already know, is a methodology or an approach to innovation. But it's also a sort of structured process that is used for complex problem solving, and a way of thinking and working that promotes empathy and teamwork at work. So the 5 stages of design thinking are pretty self-explanatory: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. But the way that we like to describe them is using these ducks. So essentially, you can see here that through this little rubber duck innovation journey, the whole process of design thinking is depicted in a cyclical manner, as it is a cyclical process. So first, we empathize, which means that we meet the users that we are trying to help, and we really invest ourselves in understanding them, truthfully understanding who we're working with, what they care about, how they make decisions, what are their pains, and what really their days revolve around. And once we have that broader idea and that empathy toward them as an individual, but also as part of a greater group of people we're trying to help, we can then define them as a persona and define the problem that they're facing. Once we have that, we can move on to the ideas. Design thinking actually challenges us to take a step back instead of jumping to ideas, which is just our natural MO, just to get to it, and our brains are essentially wired to jump from noticing a problem, going to an idea. Design thinking makes us stop and really evaluate the problem and the people that have that problem, so that then we can come up with ideas. When we come up with ideas in design thinking, we focus on coming up as many ideas as possible, and then we create a prototype that we can test. Once we've tested the prototype, we can see if what we assumed previously in the previous steps was correct. And if it wasn't, we return to them, redo things, and return to the testing. We might need to do this process several times, but ultimately, when the test confirms that we are on the right track, we can implement a fully scaled solution. So to go a little bit deeper in each of these stages, we've constructed this path through them, which will help me, as well as you, visualize what actually needs to happen through these stages when you tomorrow need to use this methodology or want to use this methodology to run a workshop in your organization, to use it in your daily decision-making, etc., so that you know what this actually means. What does it mean to empathize? What does it mean to define, etc.? So first of all, empathize. When it comes to empathizing and what the real challenge of this stage is, especially when you're working with other team members and participants, is that you need to make sure that they're focusing on observing and listening the actual situation. Oftentimes, we jump to conclusions very quickly. We see one person doing one thing one way, and then we just assume that everyone is like them, which might not be the case. In order to truthfully understand these people, which understanding is equivalent to empathizing, we must observe and listen and understand them as they are, accept them in a way. After empathizing, we get to the second stage, which is define. In order to define ultimately the problem that this person is having, so that we can ideate solutions, we need to analyze what we found out in the first stage. If we were doing market research, we need to analyze the findings. If we were talking to people, we need to come back together and, as a team, analyze what they told us, what the feedback was, etc. We also retrace, and this is just, let's say, a fancy word, which means that we need to analyze the steps that these people take during their journey, during their day, in relation to the problem that we are trying to define and observe and resolve ultimately. This sounds highly theoretical, and I'm sure that I lost a lot of you at this point. This is where a crucial part of the design thinking methodology comes in, and that is the design thinking tools. So two tools that we use specifically in this stage are the persona and the customer journey map. So the persona is this sort of layout, as you can see on my screen, where we fill in information that helps us define the identity of this person that represents the group we're trying to help. And then when it comes to the retracing, in order to truthfully understand how this person lives their life and how they face the problem we're trying to solve and what their biggest pain point actually is, we have another really genius tool, which is called a customer journey map. You can see it here on the screen. So these tools are actually something that we have, well, not these tools, but different tools, something that we actually have in each stage, which help us implement all of these quite theoretical goals that we have for each stage. For example, for the ideation stage, we have the brainstorm, then selecting the best ideas and expanding them. We have tools for each one of these stages, which helps us do this faster, with more focus, and with a lot more deliberation when it comes to teamwork. So it helps people that are inherently different come together and work on each of these steps very quickly because the tool guides them through the process. So in ideation, for example, we would use first brainstorming, where we come up with as many ideas as possible. You can do this sort of as a game. And it's really important in this stage, the sort of middle or third stage of design thinking, to make sure that people are relaxed, sort of going with the flow. And sometimes this can be difficult because, especially if the people that have come together are from different sectors of the company or from different, let's say, positions, they might have a difficulty loosening up. But it's really important that we make everyone relaxed, because no matter what your position is, no matter what your experience is, no matter what your age is, we all come up with the best ideas while we're very relaxed in the shower. So make sure everyone's relaxed, to make sure we go with the flow, come up with as many ideas as possible, and ultimately we will select the best ones. Why is this important? Why is it important to come up with as many ideas as possible? Because ideas are a numbers game, right? If we focus strongly on coming up with one really amazing idea, then the odds are that idea is not really going to be great. It might be amazing, but then we have one amazing idea. If we try to come up with 100, not evaluating them based on quality, just 100 ideas, odds are we will have at least 5 or more really good ideas. So having this in mind, is so much better to just have fun with this stage, let ideas flow. Then we can select the best ones and expand the ones that we've selected. The fourth stage, now that we have the idea and we've selected it, it's important to conceptualize it, sketch it, build it, turn it into something that visually represents what the team has come up with as an idea. So what can a prototype be? A prototype can be a sketch. It can also be some kind of a website. It doesn't even have to be a fully functional website. It can be just the layout of a website. But beyond the, let's say, scrappy solutions that we tend to come up in design thinking workshops, I really like giving this example because it's a great way of showing what a testable prototype is. And that is through ads. I love telling this story because I'm sure you all know the person that I'm going to mention. His name is Tim Ferriss, and he's a pretty famous author and entrepreneur. He's the author of the 4-Hour Workweek, which is a book that I'm sure everyone on the planet knows about. And if you don't, you should look it up. So this book became a bestseller a couple of years ago. When he released it, he made a lot of money from it, all is great. But how did he get there is what's really interesting. So he was deliberating, he had his book, but he was deliberating what to call it, what the title of the book should be. And in order to come up with the, let's say, final answer, what name are we going to put on the cover of this book when we put it out there, he ran ads. He ran Google AdWords, and the title, which we have now on the book, which is the 4-Hour Workweek, performed the best out of all the other ones that he put in. So he created sort of a prototype before putting the actual product out there to test how and what would perform best. So when we think about prototypes, we don't have to think about physical products or different little models of what we're trying to build. we can also go in the direction of something else that is also going to enable us to test behavior, because ultimately that's the goal of our prototype. So finally, when we get to the test stage, we have to return to the users, show them our prototype, observe how they interact with it, and then diagnose if what we did prior was correct. Likely it won't be. And then we decide where to go back and then repeat the process. I really believe that the best way to understand all of these things that I just said, which I might have lost you at because they're highly conceptual, is through examples. So I'm actually going to invite Lela in a few moments to share with all of you a few really, really cool examples from companies around the world. But first, there's an interesting poll that will show up on your screen, which asks which of these products, the ones that are listed, were created using the design thinking methodology. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the results and seeing if you are able to guess. So as you can see on my screen, there's actually many companies in the world that are very well known, which have used the design thinking methodology. This is sort of the short list that we use because, in fact, there's dozens, hundreds of companies in the world that are also well known that use this methodology. It's sort of something that realistically is quite new in our day-to-day communication, but in terms of global business, the design thinking methodology is something that's actually quite old and very well known and implemented. So it's just something that we like to talk about because it's really useful, but it's nothing new. It's not new news. It's something that is well-defined, well-tested, tried, and proven as a really good approach to innovation. Okay, so I'm looking forward to the results, but before we get them, I'm gonna give the floor, or rather the mic, to my colleague Lela to tell you about some global success stories.
Sorry, I was muted. As Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. So every child's dream is to go to Disneyland. So Disneyland is a design thinking project, because the problem or the challenge that Walt Disney had was only desire to create a place where the atmosphere and events will be recorded in the memories of each individual, both children and adults, a place where they will have a great experience and special moments. So he did it. He made design thinking park, Disney park, with this design thinking methodology. And the key of this experience is attention to details, a focus and desire to constantly and improving details and elements on the experience and creating something that it will be unforgettable. So his impact was a theme park that is dominant and one and only in the world, where millions of users, visitors go every year. Next example was the Bank of America. You know the famous quote, "Keep the change." So together with design consultancy idea, they wanted to understand how to get more people to open bank accounts and saving accounts. And after a deep research, they observed a dozen of families and interviewed people on the streets. And the insights were that they will create something that will be interesting with the name "Keep the Change." And what was that? That was that every time one buys something with a Visa debit card, the bank rounds up, oops, the pop-up. Oh, nice, the results. Okay, so the results are interesting because who is the winner? Apple Computer Mouse. So Tina, is this correct?
Yes, it is correct, but actually all the answers are correct.
All the answers are correct. Okay, so we will see through the examples. I was at the keep the change example. They create this, we can say, the product where everyone was going to take some the change on the credit card and put on their saving accounts, and that was something that millions of people were doing in the US, except especially the women, because it was for the product for them, and this was something that changed the bank forever. Something that is very interesting and we are using every day, maybe some of us, is the Netflix. What was the problem and what was the challenge that they were solving? The desire to find an alternative to video libraries and high rental rates. And the solution was that the Netflix began as a web-based catalog service that rented older movies in DVD format by mail. It was, and currently Netflix provides on-demand internet streaming windows. So every one of us uses it today. And it is not just a technology company anymore, but an exclusive content and spends over billions on content. And Netflix has always been ahead of the understanding the human needs and designing for them. That's why they are using on a daily basis design thinking methodology. And something that Tina also said, that design thinking is used in the social sector. The countries that are not in good and well development, they want to do something more for the people. So the Clean team in Ghana, they made something interesting. They wanted to provide in-home toilets for the millions of Ghana people that they didn't have in toilets in their houses. And they, with research and with the help of the ID organization, they range from industrial design to branding to business. One of the main components of the Clean team was to do a custom designed standalone toilet, but which will set Clean team apart in the waste removal system that supports it. And the impact was that now they served over 5,000 people in Ghana, and they made them lives cleaner, healthier, and more dignified. We can say that there are many, many more examples. There were only 3 or 4 that we said, and the impact is growing and growing, and many people starting to use it in daily basis and in their company and in daily life. That were the few examples that we wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Lela. So now returning to how we can use design thinking, now that we saw how other organizations, worldwide organizations, as well as developing organizations from developing countries use this methodology, something that you might have noticed that all of these stories that Lela told you had in common was an inherent focus on the customers. They essentially took something that the customers or the users were already doing and used that information to create a new service or a new product that would later enhance the customer experience. So how can we do the same? First of all, I want to introduce this, let's say, question. How do you take something that is a process, a methodology, whatever, and then actually use it? How do you go about that? And this is the question that I had when I first heard about this methodology. I was like, what is this? How do people actually use this to create all of these amazing products? How does that work? And when you start to get into it, it actually gets interesting, because the more you get into it, the more you understand that there's just so many ways that you can literally use design thinking in your daily life, almost like a religion, like a dogma. But before we get into that, for the mega fans out there, here are 5 design thinking approaches that any organization can take on, or any individual can take on, and start implementing better approaches to innovation today. So one of them is internal workshops with employees. Employees, we work together, we communicate all the time, but sometimes we need to break out of the mold, especially when we're facing something that is complex. Creating a new product or a new service is a complex thing. If you work in sales, creating a new sales approach or a new sales funnel is a complex thing. It's not possible to create something exceptional if only one person does it, present it to the executives, and then we just expect everything to be fine and dandy, right? So these internal workshops with employees can be really powerful in figuring out how we can create something that is going to essentially encompass feedback and perspectives from everyone in the organization, so that we can essentially reduce its risk and make sure that it's something that is tangible and something that has a much higher chance of succeeding out there in the world. We will actually share some examples from our own experience later on with each one of these approaches. So if they're sounding conceptual right now, be patient, we're going to get to that very soon. So the second way we can include design thinking in our innovation processes is through co-creative workshops with users or customers. What this actually looks like is you invite users and customers, or people that match your user and customer group. They might not already be your customers and users, or you can invite actual users and customers from your brand to co-create something new. Let's say you want to come up with a new product, but you're going to target the same target group. Then you invite them and they co-create a solution for you. It sounds like something that an evil genius would come up with. It's not. It is just a crazy genius, and it really works. The third way we like to call open innovation. This is a world that's really been circulating around in the tech world, especially adjacent to hackathons, or what we like to call creative marathons, because we don't always work with hackers. Sometimes that connotation can do more harm than good. But what this means is that instead of gathering employees or users, you actually invite the youth to co-create solutions on a predetermined problem, or to create something that your brand that is already established or is just starting out can use in the future. And that way, you can boost the creation of new and fresh ideas. And this is something that we're actually very passionate about, because other than creating amazing ideas for your brand, in the end, it's also boosting young people's confidence and soft skills. And it's just an all-around great experience for everyone. There's 2 more ways, which are maybe somewhat less known, but pretty obvious, that design thinking is used in the world. One is design sprints and accelerators. These are sort of already well-known processes that are used across organizations. Design sprints are especially used in tech companies, and they're sort of a structured approach or process. It can last a week, a month. It really depends on the project lead. It's their decision, but it's a structured process where in an amount of time you're supposed to create something tangible, and it actually follows the design thinking methodology. It's sort of like a baby of this overarching concept. Accelerators is another interesting approach to innovation. It's especially used in startups. There's many famous accelerators in the world, like the YT Combinator. And they also use a lot of the methods and tools from the design thinking methodology. Finally, the fifth way that we chose to include here, which is especially important on a personal level, if you want to grow your own career and become a better leader and a better manager, understanding this methodology can help you with being a better influence with your team and ultimately growing the company, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. So getting to the examples from our own experience, which will depict a little bit more what we just talked about, I'm going to invite Lela again to tell you about a few experiences in which she was personally part of. Lela?
Yes. Okay. One of the workshops that we did with our clients was a workshop for the employees. It was internal workshop where they created for something for them. One of them was to create gamification in their company that came from their own ideas, and they had implemented it later. And one was design thinking basics for the employees to be informed what is happening, to be educated about the design methodology and to start to implement it in their everyday work. So this was the first. The second was about A1, maybe one of the favorites because it was a co-creation. And there were 4 groups of or types of people from different ages and different profiles that were creating something for themselves. It was creation because they were doing a product for them. The users came for the workshop and they were creating or defining the products that they would like to use in the future. And later in 3 or 5 months, the products were published and they were real. They came from the real users from 4 or 5 different types and tariffs that they exist in every day. And also my favorite is the third type of workshops and creative hackathons for the young people or the students that we are doing 3 or 4 years in a row. We were doing this during the pandemic. We had 3 or 5 for them, 3 to 5, and live hackathons also for the people from the high school from all over the Macedonia, and they were very creative and successful, and they had very great impact to the society. That were the 3 my favorite.
Okay, and then I'll tell you about 3 more that I actually had the privilege to work on, and one of them was the Ohridska Banka hackathon. It was really interesting experience because it was an open innovation tournament. As you can see, there's a lot of people here, and during the weekend, they all co-created solutions for a predetermined problem that this bank established. The bank at this time wanted to improve their mobile application experience. And these people here, with their creativity, their enthusiasm, they actually went through the design thinking process, talked to real users, and then came up with ways that this bank can and eventually did improve their banking application. Another kind of experience that we've been able to create, actually inspired by clients like Ohridska Banka, is our very own event called Rethink. We've had 2 so far. We were kind of deliberating whether we should continue doing them during the pandemic, but decided not to, but soon we're planning another one. And this unique concept enables companies that want to have an open innovation contest for their problem including students or different young people from different fields to work on their problem. But this way, because we actually combine 3 companies, they can create this experience through a joint budget, because obviously having an experience that is a hackathon just for your company can be quite expensive. This way we can combine 3 budgets and bring this to our clients who want to experience this, let's say taste test it. And actually, even though I'm presenting them in reverse, Ohridska Banka had 3 teams working on their problem during the rethink of 2019, I believe, or 2022. And then they asked us to organize a full-fledged hackathon just for them. Okay, so then moving on to something that is a little bit different. This was actually going on during the pandemic. That's why it's online. It was another project we were part of, and it was in collaboration with GIZ and their 12th Lab of Tomorrow project. And during this project, which actually lasted 9 months, so it was really lengthy, you can see the teams here were working on an online collaboration tool, which you might know. It's called Miro. And they were working together to create solutions to essentially unite our, I believe, the Western Balkans region, to create solutions to improve the online shopping experience and the trust around it in this region, which we all know we have a problem with. So that was a really interesting collaboration. We hope these examples helped you conceptualize a little bit better how design thinking can be applied to different types of innovation initiatives. And now that hopefully you have a better idea of that, we can get into how to organize a design thinking innovation workshop yourself. Okay, so first of all, how to organize a design thinking innovation workshop. Maybe from our examples, it looked like it's something that's very hefty, but if you're doing it in your organization with a small team, it's actually not that difficult to do. The first thing you need to do is set a topic. You can set a topic that's loose, but simple enough for the participants to follow. Be mindful, this is not you deciding what the problem they should be solving is. You should set a topic as a general direction, then they will discover what the problem is and then come up with solutions for it. The second thing is you need a plan for the workshop. You need to create some kind of an agenda, what will be going on. If you have only a day to conduct this workshop, or maybe a couple of hours, you can't do everything in it. So you need to select the tools and the things that will happen. But another thing that's really important to include in your agenda are energizers. Why energizers? Because it's really important to get the participants, which will be included in the workshop, in the right frame of mind. If they're not in the right frame of mind, if they're not relaxed enough, if they're not comfortable with each other, they won't participate fully. They won't give 100%, and the results will be less than what they could have been if you manage to relax them. So sometimes energizers can look quite stupid and can make people feel a little bit uncomfortable, but believe me, they are key. And if you do them a couple of times, your team will actually start looking forward to them. Like, our team is actually crazy for energizers. We're pretty much up for anything at this point. So make sure to include them. If you need some resources for the tools and the energizers, we will actually include some examples in the toolkit we will send you after the webinar. So look forward to that. Finally, it's really important to include a diverse group of people. If you're working on, let's say, trying to come up with a new marketing approach, don't just include people from marketing. Invite people from the other sectors. Invite people that actually do customer management, or invite people from sales, or invite people from product development. You need different perspectives to come together so that the outcomes are, fire. Then when you're getting to the day of the workshop, this is when you're going to start to get nervous. And no matter how much experience you've had, you will get nervous. So remember just these three things. This is the gist of it. The first thing is you have to kick it off with an energizer. We like to call these kickoff energizers icebreakers. Again, there will be more information on all of this in the toolkit, which we will send you. So to just get everyone kind of loosened up. The second thing is that you have to set the tone and the rules of play. How do you do this? Well, first of all, you do this by the way that you act. You as the, let's say, facilitator of the workshop, the one that leads it, you will actually be the leader that everyone will follow. If you are quiet and really kind of, you know, low energy, everyone will follow your example. You set the tone through your own behavior. So be loud, do silly things, move your hands like I'm doing right now, which might look very uncomfortable, but I'm sure is actually making all of you feel a little bit more comfortable about yourselves. And that's exactly what the point is. You can also say very clearly that everyone in the room is equal, especially if you're putting together people from different ranks. You can communicate this through words, but throughout the workshop, you might need to get in and again repeat that everyone is on the same level here and encourage people that are maybe more quiet to speak up. The third thing for the kickoff is, well, once again, be the most energized person in the room. This is actually the most important thing for facilitating a workshop, believe it or not. The tools can be changed, everything can be changed, but if you are positively energized and putting a lot of energy out there, the outcomes will come. You have to trust that. Okay, so now you've kicked it off. How do you facilitate the whole process? If it's a one-day workshop, if it's a two-day workshop, what do you do? What's really important to keep an eye on when you're working with this methodology? So the first thing is the tools. We will send you some tools, like we said. You can find more online. These are available everywhere, but the tools are not the most important thing in this process. It's great if we, go through them and fill out everything, but what's even more important is what is going on in the room. If the conversation is going in a different direction, you have to adapt the tool to the situation. Another important thing is to adapt your language, the way you speak, to the people in the room. So make sure to go down a level if you can feel they're not understanding how you are expressing yourself, especially if you're working with younger people or maybe people that are not as educated as you are. Don't use terminology that they don't know. Put things in simple terms because it's really important to be understood and to open the gateways of communication. Next, neutralize conflict and influence through questions. What do these two things mean? Well, first of all, conflict can arise. Sometimes it can be really obvious that there's conflict. People can start fighting. This happens very rarely, but it could happen. And sometimes conflict is very subtle. You almost feel it in the air, but nobody's really communicating anything. That's exactly how you feel it. Nobody's communicating anything. You want to have a situation where people are speaking openly enough and saying what's on their mind, enough to facilitate the process, but not allow anyone that might be, let's say, 10 times more loud than anyone else in the room, shut everyone else down. So you have to balance between people, and there's different strategies in how you can do that. And there's going to be some tips in this, again, in the toolkit, which we will send you. The second part of this, influence through questions, essentially means that as the person leading the workshop, your job is not to participate in the workshop, is just to kind of guide the process. You shouldn't give ideas. You shouldn't influence the overall direction of the idea and where it's going. You should simply insinuate the process itself, for example, if people are stuck or they're jumping to ideas in the first stage when they're supposed to focus on the problem, you can ask questions to get them to focus on the problem instead of jumping to solutions. And the third thing is to really balance your own focus between pace and process. What this means is that you will always have a running clock, right? No workshop, no sprint is gonna run for an infinite amount of time, and that's not the point. We need deadlines to keep us moving, to keep us going forward. Deadlines are kind of like goals. If we don't have goals, where are we even going? But you need to balance between the coming deadline and the process itself. You need to take the team that you're working with through the process, approaching the deadline or the deadlines you've set for each stage, and balance between, are we on time and did we actually get through this stage properly? Did we actually get the proper conclusions sufficient to move on to the next stage? This is difficult, but if you start practicing it, it's going to get better with time. So the more, let's say, workshops or even conversations you facilitate using this methodology, you're going to get better at it. So we hope that these tips helped you out. I know that you might have more questions than answers, and soon we will get to the Q&A, so you can ask them. But because there's so much information out there to help you, and there's no way we could fit everything in a short webinar, that's why we created the toolkit, which we will send you after the webinar, so you can actually explore more over there and learn at your own pace. So the last bit that we also believe it's really important to cover, how to become a better manager and leader with design thinking. I'm going to give the mic, the invisible virtual mic, once again to Lela to tell you a little bit more about this, and then we will go over to the Q&A.
So as you can see in Richard Branson quote, we should be the good listeners, so we can be the best leaders then. I can say that the most important thing for the leaders is to learn how to be better leader and manager, because the first and the most important step from the design thinking is, as you have learned today, is empathy. When we are empathizing with people and with our users, with our friends, with family, we get better results. And when we are empathizing, we are also at the moment and better listeners. So why we can use design thinking also for becoming better leaders and managers? Because this methodology, as we said, this hour is customer-centric oriented, and we should be human-centered oriented also. So because when we go in the shoes with the others, we can be more empathic, we can feel with others, and we will do better results when we understand better our teammates, and of course the whole company. Design thinking helps us in better decision making, and maybe sometimes in faster decision making, because when we are doing, as we said before, prototyping, we can make the process more faster from one point to another point. Giving feedback is very important for everyone. Everyone from us want to hear good words, but we also want to hear something that will lead us on the right path, and that lead us also for better improvement and for growing. So the collaboration is very successful, and we can improve our collaboration when we use design thinking and those three steps in everyday communication with our colleagues, with our teams, and the whole management. So I will suggest you and advise you to start implementing design thinking and share with your teammates that they didn't know about this methodology and process till now. And I hope that we'll see the results and you will tell us later.
Okay, so before we jump into the Q&A, again, like we mentioned several times, there is going to be a little booklet you receive in digital form after the webinar. That's our design thinking guide and toolkit. We put it together specifically for you. So we had in mind the fact what you could or would be using the methodology for. So we're hoping it's going to help you in its further implementation, because something that's really important about design thinking is that you can't learn it until you experience it. So you have to actually put yourself either in the shoes of a participant of a workshop or organize a workshop itself to really understand what this methodology means and how it resets our mind to think in more innovative ways. For more resources, you're welcome to check out our insights page on solveo.co. And then for everyone who's joined us from Macedonia, you can check out designthinking.mk, where you can read stories, especially from Macedonian entrepreneurs and how they've used design thinking and its approaches to drive their innovation. Also, you can follow us on social media. Our Facebook page is Solveo Insights, Instagram at solveo.co, as well as LinkedIn and Twitter, if there's people still using Twitter here. The bird has been set free, but it's going wild. And now it's time for Q&A.